Welcome to the Potential Leader Lab, and I am your host, Perry Moffmer. And today we're on episode number 55, part 2, Leading with Conviction, the Courage to Say Amen. So, as we say, leadership's about showing up, and it's about showing up relentlessly, authentically, and intentionally. So we're going to get started, and because the echoes that you leave as a leader don't just impact today, they shape your future and the future of those that you care deeply about. And I do want to start kind of by saying, this is part 2 of the talk about saying amen and the courage to lead with conviction. And I think we go back to something that Nietzsche told us, which is, you have your way, I have my way. As for the right way, the correct way, and the only way, it does not exist. So just think about that as we go through this discussion, because all of these things are descriptive, not prescriptive. You don't have to agree with or do any of these things. My hope is that through I view my work here doing some podcasts as exploration. I'm just trying to share ideas that I find interesting, things that I use myself, and I'm tossing them out there to everybody else. And if they make sense for you, they resonate with you, then you can create your own experiments on the way to your own personal and professional evolution, because that's the goal here. The goal here is that everybody listening understands that they have the power within them. And I would almost challenge you with it's not only that, it's the responsibility to do something. You don't need anything else. You have it all here within. You can choose differently, right? That's all. It's not better, it's not worse, it's just different. So we can choose different behaviors that extend our impact and create a better world for those that we care deeply about. So with that said, remember, you have your way, I have my way. As for the right way, the correct way, and the only way, it does not exist. So don't let anybody tell you it does. So let's get started. We're going to pick up where we left off last week, and we're going to talk about renewal. And we talk about that in the concept of embracing the cycle of leadership growth. Now, I'm just not talking about physical renewal. I'm talking about renewal of purpose and vision. And I can't stress this enough that we have to constantly, on some type of routine cadence for ourselves and those we care deeply about, reinvigorate our sense of purpose and vision, because that will not stay static throughout our lives. We run into different things in our lives. We have different seasons in our lives. And with each of those seasons can come changes to this. It isn't a requisite, it isn't prerequisite. You don't have to change it, but it can. And so you have to continue to revisit it, because you want to make sure it's still relevant. You want to make sure it still means something to you and the people that you care deeply about. And leading is a renewable resource, but only if you approach it with the spirit of self-renewal. Only if you continually get reinvigorated, because it does require a bunch of energy to do this. So you have to figure out for yourself what reinvigorates you, what renews you, what gives you the passion and the never-ending fountain of energy you need to do this work. And it oftentimes requires to detach from the work that you're most attached to, because you want to see that work objectively. If you can't see the label from inside the bottle, you have to be able to question your own tactics and be open to change and embrace opportunities to reinvent yourself. And I think this goes to, I love the example of the phoenix. And Nietzsche had a quote that talked about how can you envision doing anything if you're not willing to be burned in your own flame to ashes? That's a violent deconstruction of who we are. This is not for the weak of heart, right? It's not easy. It's not simple. It's not just, oh, I think I'll do this or I think I'll do that. It can be relatively painful, but in a very positive, renewing, energizing, meaningful way. Because that burning yourself down to ash and rising from those ashes isn't just slight modifications on something. It's transformational and a reinvention of who you are. And that can oftentimes lead to some pretty dramatic increases in energy. All right. So and that's why the framework that I developed I think the one thing it offers to people that everybody wants and that can really lead to a lot of energy is freedom. The freedom to reinvent, the freedom not to be static, the freedom not to be anchored in your past. Your past does not define your future. Just because you did doesn't mean you have to. You have the freedom to change that at any time. And I'm telling you, freedom brings energy because it releases you from weight, the weight to have to do what you did. Because introspection is exploration and action is experimentation. And what results from exploration and experimentation is evolution. But evolution only happens with reflection because we have to judge the things that we experimented with and determine what we're going to do. Back to Nietzsche, what my way is going to be. Because my way is always my way, and I can continue to change it as much or as often or as infrequently as I like. Leadership, being a leader is not static. You don't, that's why labels are dangerous. That's why I don't like when people, talk about themselves as a leader because labels are dangerous. Leadership is dynamic in an evolving process. It's not a title or a job. It's a state of mind, a state of being, a state of action. It's action you take, not something you are. I mean, I can tell you this. I see this quite frequently in the work that I do, and it's very empowering and also energizing to see leaders who have pursued a certain strategy. I have one that I'm working with now who, for the last, well, ever since I've actually met them, so probably 5 years, have been psychologically and theoretically and emotionally pursuing a strategy. Now, it was never actually written down, but it drove all of their decision making and behaviors. And they've come to the conclusion it's not going to work. And they're taking appropriate action to pursue something different. Not better, not worse, but different. Because what they were doing, the frame that they used, the worldview that they were looking through their business as, is no longer valid to them. It's not producing the results for them, the people they care deeply about, the business itself, their clients, take your pick. It's not working for anybody. So now we're going to figure something different out. They're going to make some pretty dramatic changes in the business to realign it so that it can be sustainable and scalable for those that work there. And to be honest, renewal is our way of dealing with absurdity and finding strength to act amongst uncertainty. I mean, Albert Camus talked about Sisyphus and, rolling that rock up that hill over and over and over again for eternity. But Camus looked at that because that was going to be the eternal frustration. Nobody would want that. Would you want to do that for eternity? Roll a rock up a hill and then it rolls down the hill and then you push it up the hill and it rolls down the hill? That would be eternally frustrating. But Camus looked at it differently because Sisyphus alone gets to decide how to live and feel within the confines of his punishment. And this goes straight to the concept of we always have a choice, even if it's not the choice we like. We always have choice. And that at the foundation is the choice of how we feel. But if we know all of us have our own rocks or rock that we push up and down the hill, but if we can find joy in that struggle and embrace and overcome the absurdity of any situation for one moment during that cycle, we're the hero. We're happy because we did what was required, even though we might have to do it again. I mean, think about that. Think about the myth of Sisyphus as an analogy or metaphor for our life. We're never done. We're done when we're dead. That's it. We're never done. We should never want to be done. We should never want to retire. We should never want to do any of those things. We always have to have our rock. Our rock gives us our purpose. Just be careful that you intentionally choose the rock and not have it assigned to you by somebody. Because all of us are accountable to somebody. And we always have those choices because, and I know that punishment sounds harsh, but we alone decide how to live and feel within the confines of our construct. Call it construct, call it punishment, call it job, call it situation, call it whatever you want. But we alone decide how we feel and how we live within those confines. Constraints are empowering, constraints are required, constraints are innovative. They create opportunities for us, they don't limit us. So, how do we amplify that impact? We're going to talk a little bit about the echo effect. We're going to talk about how your actions, your words, and your energy create an echo that influences other people, even beyond the immediate interaction. Because I got news for you. No, I don't. This is not about leading. This is leading in the broad sense of creating a better world for those we care deeply about. But you lead every day. Anybody hearing this leads every day because, as far as I know, everybody listening to this interacts with other humans during the course of their day at some point. And we all know that this is the one area where there is a binary result. People will either feel built up or tore down by your interaction with them. Nobody typically walks away from an interaction going, meh, I feel about the same. You either feel empowered or disempowered, happy or sad, good or bad. Take whatever descriptors you want. But if our goal as a human every day is to leave every interaction we have with somebody with them feeling built up and empowered, think about the ripple effect that has on them. Because now what are they going to do when they walk away feeling the way they feel? Now, if they make somebody feel like that and that other person makes somebody feel like that, that's what a ripple effect is. A ripple effect isn't one person. Ripples are not, you don't see one ripple. Like you drop a pebble in the pond, there isn't one ripple. There's a series of ripples. The same thing, that's why it's called the ripple effect. It's multiplied, not just one. So when you think about, are you inspiring growth and courage, or are you fostering fear and hesitation? What are your actions doing? So think about these questions. Just think about these in the context of your day. What's the legacy of your impact on other people? You can think about it. We can actually call it leadership. What's the impact of your leadership? Are you inspiring other people to grow, to take chances, to take courageous steps? Or is it fear and hesitation? What are you leaving behind in people by your actions and your words and your presence? How do those words impact other people? Consider that. Consider your communication style, your feedback, your decisions. Are you building confidence or sowing doubt? And I understand this ain't easy. I get it. But it's us. It's the opportunity we have in front of us, the choice we make every day. And are you modeling the behaviors you want to see? Are you telling people one thing and acting a different way? Are you demonstrating that growth mindset? Are you demonstrating resilience that you expect from other people? I had a leader tell me the other day, he's going to talk to his team, and he says, I feel like the team has become complacent recently. And I said, can I ask you a question? He said, sure. I said, well, whose fault is that? Theirs or yours? Who's responsible for that? And who should be getting this message, them or you? And do you have to tell them any different, or you just have to act differently? I think it was Thoreau who said, your actions thunder so loudly, I cannot hear what you say. Do you create a safe environment for risk taking? Does the way you treat people make them feel empowered to take risks, or is there fear of retribution or judgment if they fail, if they're wrong? I see this a lot, and I know it's human nature, but we always talk about wanting innovation. We talk about wanting people to take risk and take chances and grow. Because, by the way, growth is risky. If I want to grow, then I have to choose different behaviors that I don't know if they're going to work. That's the only way I can grow. I can't grow with certainty. So are we building an environment where those things are celebrated? At, can they at least be tolerated? Like, we don't even have to celebrate them, but will we at least tolerate them? I mean, just think about this with your kids, with each other. Think about it with yourself. How often do you give yourself freedom to fail? Just start there. In your own mind, are you free to fail? Do you truly embrace that opportunity? Because, by the way, growth and fixed mindset, the work from Carol Dweck, everybody says, everybody I talk to, oh, definitely growth mindset, growth mindset. I read a lot of books. I don't give a shit if you read a lot of books. That's not a growth mindset. Growth mindset has to be someone who seeks failure, who actually fails over and over again, because growth happens at the point of failure. So somebody in a growth mindset is going to be routinely doing things that don't work. Not catastrophic. That's not what we're talking about here. I tell people in organizations that have leadership roles, I'm like, look, your job is to build in opportunities for non-fatal failure for people. Your whole job should be making a list of how you're going to create environments and situations where people that work with you, around you, for you, and that you work for can experience non-fatal failures, because that's the point of growth. That's it. No ifs, ands, or buts. That's it. If I'm doing everything right, I'm not growing. But we have to build a culture where that's, again, at least tolerated. It doesn't have to be celebrated, but can you at least tolerate it and not punish it? How do you, and by the way, here's the next question. How do you handle your own mistakes? Do you teach other people by your own failures to show resilience and learning? Or do you react in a way that's negative to your own? Like, do you celebrate your own mistakes? Do you show that to other people? Or are you beating yourself up and hiding those things? I mean, what stories do you tell other people about leadership? Are those stories about empowerment and encouragement? Or are they about fear and control? Stories are meaningful. They're important to people. So what stories are you sharing? What's this will be one. What's your emotional tone of your leadership? I want you to think about this. When somebody walks away from a conversation with you, if they had a piece of paper and on that piece of paper said hope, energy, and purpose, would they walk away checking those boxes off? Would they walk away saying, I now have a sense of hope, energy, and purpose after that conversation? Or are you draining people with negativity and uncertainty? Because all we have is our energy. Now, I'm assuming you would not go to an ATM or use your Apple Watch or whatever form of payment you want to say. I was going to say write a check, but hell, nobody knows what a check is anymore. So I'm not going to date myself with that reference, which I just did. But the point is that you would not give somebody money for nothing. You would not just go hand somebody $250 and go, here, take that, and expect nothing in return, nothing of value in return. So why in the world do we do that with our energy? Here, I'll give you an example. Why do you watch the news? Because here's what I want to ask you, and this is a highly personal example. When you watch the news, when you're done, do you have a sense of hope, energy, and purpose? Or are you drained because of negativity and uncertainty? Because those two things, the first one brings energy. Energy's in the list. Hope, energy, and purpose. Did you get something positive back from that investment of your energy? So think about that on a daily basis. When you're having any interaction, any discussion, are you doing it and getting a return? Are you feeling hopeful, energized, and have a sense of purpose? Are you feeling drained from negativity and uncertainty? Because we have to look at it both from ourselves and what we're doing for other people. And unfortunately, sometimes we just pass along what we're doing. So if we're constantly engaged in things that are bringing negativity and uncertainty, that's what we're giving people. It's very hard to do one and not the other. Because how can I do things with negativity and uncertainty that drain me and that have energy to give to other people? I mean, come on, it's a math problem. In this case, unlike math, two negatives don't make a positive. How do you approach difficult conversations? Because you can have a difficult conversation and lift somebody up. You can have a difficult conversation that fosters growth and mutual understanding, or are you generating defensiveness and avoidance? That's the skill. The skill is to talk to somebody about something challenging, but still build them up, still show them they have the self-efficacy, still show them they have the capacity, still show them your belief in their ability to do this. If I looked at your actions, would they echo your values? What are the things that you espouse that you believe about yourself? And then what do you leave behind in the minds of other people? So if we followed you around all day, if there was a hidden camera on you all day and all somebody could do is watch, at the end of that film, would they check the boxes? This person acted with a sense of hope, energy, and purpose. Could I see that in your actions? And could I see that by the actions of the people you interacted with? What did they do? Where was that ripple? How far did it go? And was it a ripple of hope, energy, and purpose, or negativity and uncertainty? And then after you think about all that, ask yourself, how do you adjust your leadership today? How do you make different decisions? What actions can you take? What decisions can you make that inspire courage, confidence, and growth? Because do you not want to do that? Courage, confidence, and growth? I mean, if you think about this, if you could say at the end of the day, I think in 80% of the conversations I've had with individuals today, in any way, shape, or form, I don't care if it's a client, your kids, your friends, your peers, the people that report to you, the people you report to, God knows they could use some help too. I work with a lot of them. They could use a lot of help. They could use some energy. They could use some positive interactions. Are you inspiring people for courage, confidence, and growth? And again, leading up, I know a lot of us work with and for other people. Even the people that you work for, the people you report to, they need this just as much as you do. They need courage. They need confidence. They need to be talked to in a way that inspires those things. Courage, confidence, and growth. We're all humans. I had a conversation the other day with a young lady who works for a couple of owners that I work with, and they asked me to speak to this person who's on their leadership team. There's the two owners and two other people on the leadership team, and this young lady's one of them. But she didn't view herself as an equal. I said, I'd really like you to leave here viewing yourself as an equal. I realize I'm not talking in title, but as a human, as someone with wisdom and judgment and knowledge and understanding. They've invited you into that room. That's what they expect. You're every bit as equal as they are. You have to believe that about yourself before anybody else will. But oftentimes we see ourselves not as an equal, and I get it. I mean, I understand why, because of titles, but that's why titles and labels are so dangerous. So I'd like you to think back, hopefully not too long. Hopefully you don't have to go too far back. But when is the last time you believe you created a positive ripple in someone's life? What's the last conversation, meeting, opportunity, whatever, where you can say, I definitely believe that created a positive ripple effect in that person's life? And then every Friday at 4:45 p.m., take 5 minutes and ask yourself that question about the week. So tomorrow, because I'm recording this on a Thursday, so tomorrow is Friday. So sit back and think tomorrow, which will probably be Thursday because you'll listen on Wednesday. Anyway, think at 4:45 p.m., take 5 minutes. Have a timer, have a little hourglass. I love hourglasses. I've got ones for like 1, 3, 5, 15 minutes. So just flip it over for 5 minutes and list out all of the positive ripple effects you've created that week. That will be energizing for you. That'll inspire you with courage and confidence and growth. And if it's only one the first week, it's only one. It's okay. Next week, just try to do 2. Don't try to do 20 or 30. Just do 1. I think it was BJ Fogg in Tiny Habits. Always love this example, and people laugh, but it's true. He said, if you struggle with beginning to floss your teeth, floss one tooth. Floss one tooth for a week, then floss two teeth, then floss three. And after 30, 40 days, you're flossing all your teeth. Create an opportunity for yourself to win. All right, so now we're going to talk about the actual title of the podcast, which is The Courage to Say Amen. Now, amen, I'm using amen as a metaphor for commitment, alignment, and intentionality. It's the moment you say, this is where I stand. That's what amen represents to me. Now, the word amen can essentially be one of three things: accepting the consequences of a statement, expressing agreement about something that has happened or is currently the case, or expressing belief in something that will happen but has not yet come to fruition. It's important to remember that just the saying of amen can constitute a ritual in and of itself. More than just expressing acceptance, agreement, or belief, it's a ritual public performance. Now, I'm not literally saying you have to say amen out loud. That might be a little strange at the end of a meeting. I get it. What I'm saying is, when you close out something, are you able to say with conviction, this is where I stand? Because I think this is, in part one, I talked about David White and about, he's an Irish poet. And I talked about his description about how we need to use bigger language to talk about things. And I think that talking about things differently makes the future different. When we talk about reverence in leadership, when we talk about using the word amen and saying, this is where I stand. Saying this is where I stand is very different than saying, I'll do this. If somebody talks about a strategy or a tactic or a goal or something, and somebody's like, yes, I'll do that. That's one thing. But if you say, this is where I stand, that's a whole different thing. There's this great nonprofit organization out there, a little aside, they have these cards, and they're a blank card, and at the bottom, it says, because I said I would. And so what they recommend you do is when you're working with somebody and you've made a commitment, you write on that card what you're going to do and you give it to that person. And it says, this, and this, because I said I would. That person gets to hold that card until you do it. When you've done it, they give your card back to you. Because again, because I said I would is different than just agreeing to say, okay, put my name by that box. Because inevitably what happens in meetings is, did that get done? Oh no, I got busy and da 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 da. But if I have a card and it doesn't get done and I show you that card and I say, well, you said you would, that's different. If a leader says, this is where I stand, that's different. Now here's some examples, right, of how amen in leadership works. Number one, you probably figured this one out by now. It's a symbol of commitment. It's your willingness to take a definitive stand and affirms your decision and aligns your actions with their values and vision. Because you don't say those things lightly, or you shouldn't. It gives clarity. It signifies closure, definitive closure. And it provides clarity and focus for the team to move on with confidence. We've closed that. We can move forward. It just oozes accountability and ownership, right? You don't say that. It definitely reflects a commitment to take responsibility for the outcome, regardless of success or failure. And again, it doesn't even matter. Neither of those things truly matter. You either win or you learn. There's no losing here. It's all an experimentation. And if you don't think of it like that, then your ego needs to be put in check a little bit, because as far as I know, nobody within the earshot of this is omniscient. So you don't know with certainty anything that you think is going to happen is going to happen. It defines conviction, which is authenticity. And it shows you're not afraid to stand behind your belief. It doesn't say that they'll always be right, but you will lead more decisively and accept failures and successes equally. It also, to be quite honest with you, embraces a ton of vulnerability, because everything we're facing is uncertain. But even in the face of that, those risks and that criticism, we're willing to say, this is where I stand. At this moment, this is where I stand. It inspires trust because someone that's going to do this has integrity. They demonstrate that decisiveness and alignment with shared values. They stand behind, they stand in front, they stand beside people. They choose each other. That's what we do every day. We choose each other. You want to change the conversation with your team? Tell them that. Tell them, I choose you. I choose to be here with you. I choose you to be on my team. That changes the dynamic immediately. It fosters momentum. It's a rallying cry. It helps teams move from deliberation to action. It moves you from, we've talked, now it's time to execute. We've committed, now it's time to move. It is that point, that decision point that moves us from talk to action. So it builds that momentum. And if you're going to say that, by the way, you're going to be present. You don't say that. It is a ritual, not a routine. Never, I don't think anybody could ever say amen that there isn't a psychological, emotional, and intellectual impact. You don't say it lightly. And let's face it, using different language matters. Because if you're saying things like amen or this is where I stand, it brings intentionality and clarity and a sense of purpose to your decisions and actions. They are not treated lightly because you don't treat them lightly. So we have obviously decisiveness and vulnerability. Both are required to lead authentically. So how do those things coexist? You have to create a balance for yourself between those two things. Because here's the thing, a vulnerable leader is unafraid, has no fear at all in acknowledging uncertainty or seeking input. And then decisiveness ensures that they take bold, clear steps forward, demonstrating two things, humanity and confidence. You can do both. Like you can be vulnerable and decisive. One does not exclude the other. You don't have to, because there are lots of decisive people who have zero vulnerability. And then we can say that all this vulnerability has zero decisiveness. We need a blend. You can do both of these things because vulnerability in the context that we're talking about is simply being able to say, I don't know, but we're going to do X because we must. There's nothing wrong with that. And you can solicit information and ideas and feedback from everybody and listen. But ultimately, one person has to decide. You cannot lead by committee. Unfortunately, it just doesn't work that way. And then finally, I want to talk about this point when we're talking about saying amen as leading as an act of faith, not in a religious sense, but as a leap towards an uncertain future with conviction. Because when you're leading, you're sharing a belief with somebody. You not knowledge or surety. You don't know anything, but you have a belief in a better future. You're creating a better world and you care about them. You want them to be part of it. You're selling that to them. So it is an act of faith. Leading is most definitely an act of faith, your own faith that you can create a future that is better for everybody. There are no guarantees ever. And leadership there's a couple pieces of this. It requires embracing the unknown, where true leadership begins where certainty ends. So just think about that. Your leadership begins where certainty ends. It's stepping into that void with conviction, knowing that the path forward is shaped by your choices and not predetermined outcomes. Your choices. Your choices define the future. You have to have, the second piece is you have to have faith in the process, not the plan. You you got to trust in the integrity of your action and your ability to adapt rather than relying on a rigid plan that says we're going to do 1, 2, and 3 and 4 and get this. This kind of faith acknowledges that meaning emerges through the journey, not the guarantee of success. It's not about the goal we're going to get, it's about who we become on the way to it. Leaders know that. And that conviction is the anchor in a world that's chaotic. There's so much change and ambiguity. Those are the constants. And your conviction serves as that stabilizing force for people. It is obviously not about having all the answers, but standing firmly in principles and taking action in alignment with them. It's not about having answers. It's about being firm in your principles and taking action aligned with those principles. And then finally, leadership as existential courage. Taking the leap to lead is an act of bravery because you're confronting the absurdity of an uncertain future, and you're choosing, again, that word comes up often, I'm circling it right now, choosing. You're choosing to create meaning through deliberate and authentic engagement with the world. Think about that. Think about that series of sentences. Taking the leap to lead is an act of existential bravery, where you confront the absurdity of an unknown future and choose to create meaning through deliberate and authentic engagement with the world. That's power. There are no big things. There are only small things. Mother Teresa said, and you should write this down and keep it in front of you every day. There are no great things, only small things done with great love. This is the core of leadership. There are no small things. There are no great things. I'm sorry. There are no great things, only small things done with great love. Humans are small things. We are not great things. We don't do great things. We humans, we small things, do small things with great love. That's what moves the world. That's the only thing that moves the world. And we do them every day. And if we do that, we're making the world a better place for those we care deeply about. So, as we close the second part of leading with conviction, the courage to say amen, we'll take a moment to reflect on what we've uncovered. Leadership is a cycle of growth and renewal, a process of constantly returning to your why and embracing the courage to adapt, evolve, and align your actions with your purpose. It's about amplifying your impact, knowing that every decision and action creates ripples far beyond that moment. And then there's the final challenge, the courage to say amen, to make those bold decisions and stand by them with conviction, even when the path is tremendously uncertain. And this is leadership as an act of faith, not faith in guarantees, not faith in certainty, but faith in your ability to create meaning through intentional action with the world. Now, your challenge is now to reflect on your echoes, your ripples, your reverberations. What impact are you leaving behind? Are you inspiring growth and courage? Are you unintentionally fostering hesitation and fear? And when the moment comes to say amen, will you have the courage to commit fully and authentically? Leadership is not about perfection. It's about presence. It's about showing up relentlessly, embracing the process, and creating a legacy that resonates long after you've left the room. I'd like to thank you for joining me on this journey, and I'd like you to keep exploring, experimenting, and evolving. And remember, leadership isn't, must never be, shall never be a routine. It's a relentless pursuit of impact and meaning. Until next time, keep asking yourself, what kind of leader are you becoming?